What is up, hotties? Welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot. I'm Bladen Kirk, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time, Matthew Sponhour and Theo Ash. We have a great show planned for you today. We're going to mock the first 10 picks of the NFL draft, hit on some NBA storylines, as well as preview the Final Four for March Madness. But before we get into all of that, Matt, Theo, how you guys doing today?
I'm doing all right. Just thinking about science, gravity, what it all means.
Nice. Very, very insightful. Very insightful.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good too. I went bird watching today, but I got lost and I had to hitchhike back. But the thing was, the guy who picked me up, he's a Bengals fan. He just kept yelling at me the whole time. Yeah,
the worst thing besides Bengals fans is honestly people who don't think that Chris Olave is going to be going to the Titans. I honestly think that Chris Olave would be the perfect pick for the Tennessee Titans at the 26th spot.
No, that's Chris Olave rated. He can't catch. He can't run. He'd be a terrible pick. He's a terrible wide receiver.
Yeah, I guess I just look around the league right now and there's all this talk about Jokic, but I don't really see what he does that Mason Plumlee doesn't. And if you talk to people who were around Denver at the time that they were both there, Plumlee was the guy who came up with the point forward concept. And he said, hey, I think that there's something to this. And he wasn't a pretty enough face. So, they gave Jokic the gig, but I don't really get it. And I miss Ish Smith too. And I miss Malik Monk, but Plumlee, man, I just don't understand why people don't talk about him as he should be.
Yeah, so back to Chris Olave, I just think that he's going to be a great addition to the Titans because he would be a great number two besides A.J. Brown. He'll definitely replace kind of like a slot type of role and all this other stuff. But, also with the addition to Robert Woods, too, he'd be a great deep threat and he doesn't have to run block as much. So, that's just my thoughts.
I'm going to have to disagree with you guys there, but.
Yeah, I guess I just think about how everything ended with PJ Washington and bundles of Brittany. And I don't know, it's just relationships can be so complicated, but I'm obviously team PJ. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, honestly, I think it's kind of sad that the Lakers aren't really making the playoffs this year because, you'd think that LeBron would be able to cement his legacy, as probably, one of the greater players in NBA history with a playoff run this year. But, it's so sad.
I think LeBron's had a pretty good season.
All right, everyone. Yes, that was an April Fool's joke. But in all seriousness, what is up, hotties? Welcome back to an actual episode of Stay Hot. I am Bladen Kirk, the real Bladen Kirk, joined as always by the real Matthew Sponhour and the real Theo Ash, my two favorite co-hosts of all time. We have a great show planned for you all today. We're going to mock the first 10 picks of the NFL draft, hit some NBA storylines, as well as preview the Final Four for March Madness. But before we get into all of that, real Matt, real Theo, how are you guys really doing today?
There's too many fake ones in the world, Bladen. Not a lot of real ones like us. And let this be a lesson and a warning to you that there's going to be a lot of fake in your life. There's going to be a lot of imposters with not the best intentions in mind, and you got to sort them out because keeping it real is
April Fool's, but the message was no joke.
It might be April Fool's, but the message was no joke. Keep the real ones in your life. Like us.
The real Stay Hot podcast. As always, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. It is April Fool's, so of course, when it's a holiday, we are allowed to demand something out of you, and we demand that you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Before we get into the mock draft, I figure we should touch on the news that Bruce Arians, quote unquote, retired, but really he got promoted. And then Todd Bowles got promoted as well to head coach. And then the Rams got Bobby Wagner.
What is Bruce Arians' new job? I haven't heard anything about that.
Senior football consultant or something. I think that's the title.
He's in Tom Coughlin mode when he went to the Jaguars, where he's like an old head coach that is now just going to kind of like give advice to the franchise and kind of more of a front office type of role.
Yeah.
So he's still around, but it is very curious that the word on the street was like, oh, maybe Brady and Arians had some disagreements. And then the day before Tom Brady decided to unretire, Arians decided to retire. So once Arians was out of the picture, all of a sudden Brady comes back and Brady was like, well, I was going to do that anyway. I don't know, man. I guess I don't know why Brady and Arians would have any kind of beef. I maybe just philosophical differences. I really don't have a great guess as to why, but I definitely think that there might be something there.
I see like the angle. I don't know. I think that Tom Brady decided, like, if he really hated Arians so much where that was the thing that made him retire, I feel like he would just leave Tampa. If it really was just Arians and then the second Arians is gone, he's going to come back.
Because Brady has enough influence. Brady has enough influence.
Yeah, and if Brady was like, choose Arians or me, I probably would have chose him. And I kind of think that like they were teasing it before it actually happened, Brady unretiring. So
yeah,
for a few days. So I don't know, maybe.
But Arians, I think, is a Hall of Fame head coach. I've got a lot of respect for Arians, and I have a lot of respect for the way that he handled this retirement and how he stepped away and how he did it. Because he was like, well, maybe if I do it after this season, we don't have a great season and some coaches get fired or the transition isn't as clean as if I did it right now. And I've got all these guys on my staff and I want to make sure that things are set up for them after I'm gone. And if I am gone and the front office can just replace whoever they want, that's not what I want. So I have a lot of respect for Arians, just what he did coaching Big Ben and Andrew Luck. And then he went to Arizona and was the head coach there and got an MVP caliber season out of Carson Palmer. And then he somehow managed to get some career best seasons out of Tom Brady, even with all the great seasons that he's had. So brilliant offensive mind. I thought he handled stepping aside and giving the job to Todd Bowles, who I have a lot of respect for as a coach as well. I think that was really handled well in Tampa
I saw
Bay.
a lot of people slandering Todd Bowles. I agree with you, Theo. I think Todd Bowles is a pretty decent head coach.
Yeah, I mean, he's been the defensive coordinator of a really stellar defense down there in Tampa Bay. I know he had a stint with the Jets that wasn't exactly a winning record, but that Jets team was like Sam Darnold throwing to Quincy Enunwa, right? It's
like
tough.
Yeah, what are you supposed to do
Yeah.
about that? Like, barring Bill Belichick, how many people are handling that?
And he had a winning record in one of those seasons, and then he couldn't quite hold on to it and had 2 losing seasons. So I have respect for Bowles as a head coach. I think they'll be fine with Leftwich and Bowles running the show in Tampa with Tom Brady back. So I just think like there is no real hot take to be had there. I just think it's a really good transfer of power in Tampa Bay. That's just kind of my take.
Yep.
The other news is Wagner to the Rams. They lose one Hall of Fame player. They get another. I mean, I think the crazy thing is that it's a 5-year contract, right?
You have to see these contracts nowadays. You see a contract tweeted out, you have no idea what it means.
I
You don't
guess
know the
that's
guaranteed
fair.
money. You don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, it's 5 years, $50 million. It's not going to be like $10 million a year. It's going to be like 40 cents the first year, and then it's all backloaded, and then there's like 3 void years, and none of it makes any sense, and none of it's real.
And then next year they'll restructure it so he gets all his
it's
money,
all this crap.
and then he'll retire at the end of next year. Like,
I don't think I'm going to speak too heavily on the contract itself at the moment because it's not going to come out exactly what it is until after we're done recording the podcast.
As it always
this whole segment make no sense.
Does.
But Wagner is he is starting to show his age, definitely,
Yes.
a little bit, and he is still like a really smart linebacker. But the athleticism is not what it once was with him for sure. Even though he did he had like, I saw people tweeting this out, like 170 tackles last year, something insane.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he's someone, and with the Rams, I just don't know if an unathletic linebacker or someone who may not be as good in space as he once was is what the Rams want because, and I'm sure they're thinking about this at maybe a deeper level than I am, so maybe there's something I'm not seeing, but the way I see it is like, hopefully, Rams, what do? We broke this down with Seth Galino when we were talking about the Super Bowl, right? And you saw it in the Super Bowl. They have 5 defensive linemen out there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That creates one-on-ones across the board. And when their defensive line has Aaron Donald on it, and you can create one, and Von Miller at the time, and you can create a bunch of one-on-ones. That's why they do it. But you got to take away something from somewhere. So they took away a linebacker. So it was basically like 5, 1, and then 5 defensive backs in nickel. So there's only one linebacker out there. And that was their big weakness. And it was Troy Reeder, and Troy Reeder was no good. And that was a substantial weakness and would get exploited all the time. in the Super Bowl, they went with Ernest Jones out of South Carolina, a rookie. Did a really good job. Ernest Jones had a fantastic Super Bowl and really a stellar second half of the season. So I would have felt comfortable with Ernest Jones in that linebacker spot. Now you're paying a 32-year-old all this money. Like, it's going to be a lot of money. It is. Like, when it works out, it's going to be a big contract. We don't know how big, but he's going to be that one guy covering a lot of space and covering a lot of tight ends, and he's got to make plays all over the field. And it's like, I don't know if I want a limited athlete there. You know, I feel like if I was going to sign Bobby Wagner, I'd want a situation where I was in base a lot with maybe 3 linebackers out there. And his role could be pretty defined. On the Rams, I don't love the scheme. I actually do not love this signing.
I can see it. I wonder if the Rams maybe are looking at maybe they're looking at a scheme change.
Maybe.
That might be the other way to look at it.
Going from paying Von Miller a lot of money, paying Bobby Wagner a lot of money, or having those guys on the defense, there's no way they're just running back the exact same thing. Ernest Jones played well. It would be more reasonable to me if maybe they did go with like 4-2-5 a little bit more now and put multiple guys out there. Because you're right. It's like teams are not as dumb as fans make them out to be. Right. So it's like the Seahawks cut Bobby Wagner. They actually didn't do that because they're just big, dumb idiots who are going to cut this great player because they're just so stupid. Like, that's not what happened. But also the Rams did not make this signing, probably didn't make this signing completely unaware of like the fact that Wagner has probably lost some athleticism. I think it would be not, and it wouldn't be in their favor to just run when you make it's a big change, Von Miller to Bobby Wagner, 2 completely different players. It would be against their favor to run a different scheme. So I think you'd look for that. Now, is it a good signing after that? I don't know, but I do think it'll be a little bit different.
I do think when you're talking about the caliber of coach of McVay, the odds that he runs back the same thing with a totally different set of players, I think is very, very slim.
You're right. So. And I could see it. And especially like if you don't have Vaughn and Aaron Donald, like the benefit of maximizing all these one-on-ones is a little bit like with no Von Miller, you're not winning those as much. So you might as well like kind of cut your losses and put a guy just as a linebacker. So I could definitely see it working out there, and I could definitely see them changing their scheme. But just like looking at what they did last year, and just like in general, Bobby Wagner's general decline is like, I don't know. It's not everybody loves the signing because it's Bobby freaking Wagner. It's the Rams who have all the Madden X factors now.
I was about to say, dude, say what you want about the on the field crap. Their Madden team is going to be ridiculous, dude. Bobby Wagner is one of the best players in Madden.
When I go live this Saturday and I beat everyone that's just playing as the Rams, like
what will be there left to say?
Nothing. Like, I'm the GOAT. No, I'm playing. Do you want to hop into the mock draft?
Yeah, let's do it. I think we're not going to do an entire one.
Yeah, it's just the top 10.
We're going through 10 picks.
10 picks. We're going to do it together because we're friends and we do things together. We do things as a unit
on this one.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
So is it gonna be what we think is gonna happen or what we would do?
I think we should do what we think is going to happen.
Yes,
I think that is more interesting and also will create better discussions. And
it'll change more when we get like a couple days out from the draft. At that point, we can do here's what I would do at this point.
Last year we did an episode, if people remember, where we split up the entire first round. Like
we'll do that at some point.
We'll do that one more time at some point, and that was a crazy mock draft because it was what we would do, and But like for this one, we're going to try to read the tea leaves a little bit. The owners' meeting just happened, pro days are happening, and some clues are starting to come in about what teams might be coveting and what teams might be looking for. So we're going to try to piece those together, see what people are saying, and see if we can't figure out this draft order, at least the top 10, and see how things might fall. So number 1 on the clock,
Jacksonville Jaguars.
Now Jacksonville.
So we've been.
Go ahead, Matt.
Oh yeah, we've been saying for a little while. I have not seen any clues, read any tea leaves about these guys. But we've been saying for a little while that Evan Neal makes a lot of sense and seems probable. He's been hyped up for a very long time. They want to build around Trevor Lawrence, kind of a weaker top end of the class, and teams go tackle there sometimes. And you could feel if you sat here at 1 and just took a franchise tackle and didn't think too hard about it, you wouldn't be mad at yourself. So that's my first gut reaction, is to say Evan Neal.
That's my first reaction too, but the one thing that has caused, and you see a lot more Aiden Hutchinson mocks recently because they franchise tagged Cam Robinson, their left tackle.
Yes.
And they've got Walker Little, who they took, I think, in the second round last year and who played well. So they might have two good tackles. Which makes me think.
It depends on your definition of good when talking about Cam Robinson, but
They've got two that you feel okay. Like they might have bigger weaknesses than tackles. Now,
True.
There was a interview with Doug Peterson, and he said, you want someone like, you want to see wow plays. You want someone like with the first overall pick, you need an instant impact starter, and you need to see wow plays is basically, which is not anything new. I'm thinking maybe Ekwonu. That's my thing. And the reason I say that is because there are more wow plays with Ekwonu, I think. Like the amount of like just dominant pancake Trent Williams-esque blocks that you see from Ekwonu is pretty crazy. And I also think he has more guard versatility, where if they wanted to throw him out there at right guard and then Walker Little and Cam Robinson, that might be the move. And I know that Dane Brugler said that NFL teams really covet Ekwonu and mocked him number 1 a couple weeks ago. Mel Kiper is like, I think I might make the argument that Ekwonu makes more sense there over Neal. That's what I was thinking. There's also Hutchinson, who we've seen is the most common mock at number 1.
If you want to talk about like, splash plays, big plays with the first pick, I mean, that's the guy that makes sense. Either Hutchinson or, maybe not Hamilton. Maybe they're not looking at Hamilton. But Hamilton, I think, would still be a valid option. But Hutchinson, I think, makes a lot of sense if you're looking at a guy that wants to just make an impact right away. That would be that guy. But man, Ekwonu makes a lot of sense. I think Ekwonu might be, like we've talked about, like with Galena, like any of like Cross, Ekwonu, and Neal, like you can have those guys in any order. And, we can sit here and be like, oh, they might take Neal. They might take, bro, they could take Cross. Like that, we don't know which tackle they like most.
Yeah.
But if they are going to take a tackle,
it could be Ekwonu. I just think that he has guard versatility, and I think like I can see a world where they think their tackles are solid, and they might want Ekwonu, and they might put him at guard.
How good would like, again, I know we're talking about what the teams are going to do.
Yes,
but I think that's really like terrible logic. If that's really what if they're taking Ekwonu because they've franchise tagged Cam Robinson, who's been shaky. It's like picking that high in the draft. You just got to go with whichever tackle you think is the best. Whichever guy's going to be the best. Because like you could, in a year's time, Robinson could be off the team, and then you'd be sitting there like, oh well, we picked our first overall pick around the guy on a franchise tag.
I think that it is not impossible that Ekwonu is just straight up better. They might also just think that he's straight up a better prospect.
That's very true.
I do think I was thinking about maybe part of the reason why they franchise tagged Robinson. They were in the running for Armstead and Lyle Collins at one point. So maybe once they were like, okay, we didn't get those guys, because you're probably thinking like, how can our free agency set up our draft? So they're like, okay, if we can get one of these tackles in free agency, then we can just go out and get Aiden Hutchinson or maybe Thibodeau with the first pick. But now you're like, okay, we didn't get those guys. Let's at least franchise tag Cam Robinson so we have someone there, and now that gives us options. So this way they're at least like flexible, which makes our pick a little bit harder here. But
it's the hardest first round pick or first overall pick.
First overall pick and forever. I cannot remember it being this. And that's awesome, because you know what the worst part about the draft is that you'll turn it on, it's like 8 and it hasn't started yet, and then you wait 15 minutes for it to start, and then the first 3 picks, so it's 9 o'clock and nothing's happened essentially. But so with this draft, it's not going to happen.
This will be a fun draft, I think.
So you want to go Icky?
Yeah,
then?
they also signed Brandon Scherf,
the guard.
That's
You're right.
true.
Yeah, that is true.
So
maybe it is Hutchinson. Maybe it is Hutchinson then.
like after all this talking about tackle, it might just be Hutchinson like the whole time.
They could use another guard that's not Scherf, though. I think that they still have a free agent. They had Linder and, who is their other guy? I do think Ekwonu, like guard versatility might not be their main, like, we need to start him at guard. I just think Ekwonu having that, what I believe more versatility in those spots is like he's got more opportunities to be an impact starter than Neal does because he's got more versatility inside just on body type. He's a little squattier. He's a little like thicker, which is kind of what you want from an interior lineman more than someone who's like 6'7".
Because Walker Little played pretty good last year.
Yeah, he did.
Mistaken.
He did.
And Robinson is not by any stretch a bad player. And then Scherf, and then if you had Icky in there, I mean, that'd be a pretty strong offensive line. And we know that's probably what Peterson's really looking at here. So
that's what he was at when he was at the Eagles. Yeah.
I think I could get behind that. I don't know. It's just so tough. It's between Neal, Icky, and Hutchinson. But,
right. And you look at their defensive ends, they just signed Arden Key, right, who had a decent year last year. But you look at their defensive ends, it's like Smoot, it's Malcolm Brown. All right. It's a little bit rough in the interior all of a sudden. And it's like, I think Arden is a nice player. And I think the guy they signed from the Jets,
I know who you're talking about.
Fatukasi.
And it's like, just say his first name. That's not easier.
It's not easier.
It's not easier.
We got to make a selection here. I think my pick might be Ekwonu at this moment, even though, because there's Jawan Taylor still, like Walker Little, Jawan Taylor.
They have
Cam
Jawan
Robinson.
Taylor. That's right.
Like those are all decent players, but all of them could get beat out. I don't know.
It depends, I think, on where the Jaguars sit analytically. Because analytics would be like, build your offensive line to the point where it's just like close to average, right? Or maybe a little bit above average. And you don't really need to get a whole lot better than that. So maybe they might, if they're leaning in that direction, they may be of the mindset that maybe we don't need a first overall pick tackle. Maybe if we can just get close to average, we can get great everywhere else.
I'm leaning Hutch.
Yeah, I might lean Hutch too. The front seven is a little bit more rough than I could definitely see it being a
Josh Allen's a good player, but like they lost what's his face at linebacker.
Miles Jack.
Jack.
Well, Miles Jack plays a completely different position than
but like in terms like they can use an elite defensive player in the front seven. They don't have one right now really outside.
I don't know.
They can't have Chase on. That's the one thing. K'Lavon Chason sucks. He might be the worst edge rusher in football. They need to replace him. I do think that Hutchinson has interior versatility where he could kick inside and Malcolm. Maybe you don't need to start Malcolm Brown as much. Hutchinson is probably the safest pick. He does have wow plays. He can be an immediate
Hutch
impact
makes the
starter.
most sense. It's taking an interior offensive lineman at 1 overall is going to be really tough for them to be worth that pick. And I'm not a big positional value guy, but you're making it very, very tough. And I know he's also a tackle, but if that's really their game plan, they have 2 good tackles right now. Their offensive line isn't bad.
They have 2 fine tackles. They have
3 tackles they have 3 tackles that could play for them next year.
Yes.
And I think okay, so again, what do teams do when it isn't a top heavy draft at 1 overall? They go with the safe pick. What's a safe pick here?
Edge rusher.
Hutchinson, super. I think that's what they do.
We literally just had an episode where we talked about how he's like a maxed out NFL player right now.
Also, gut feeling on top of all that. So, Hutch,
and it does seem to be the way that most analysts are leaning. So that brings us to Detroit at number 2, who I think definitely. I don't think they need a tackle. They just took Sewell last year. They're
on the other side too.
Their offensive line is pretty solid, and
it's really good.
I feel like Hutchinson would be a shoo-in here for them if he was here.
If he was here,
but he is not here, which makes it interesting. More and more, I have seen Trayvon Walker mocked at either the number 1 pick or the number 2 pick. That's where the Vegas odds are at. I think that he is a bit of a scheme fit for them. I think that they kind of do have like bigger edge rushers, or you look at like Trey Flowers who played for them and it never really worked out because he was never healthy. But like guys like that, or Charles Harris, who is definitely more of like a traditional defensive end, more than like a smaller outside linebacker type like Robert Quinn or Ojabo or someone like that. You know what I mean? So that might honestly, even though I wouldn't agree with it, might be the way that I lean they go here with the rise that he has had recently and the way things seem to be pointing.
Maybe it's just what I don't know if I'm getting into the headspace of what I would do, but Kyle Hamilton makes a lot of sense here. I think
he's not going number 2 after running a 4.74.
Maybe not.
Unfortunately, that
maybe that might hurt his case. But when I think about where the Lions are strong, it's off their offensive line. And honestly, I thought their defensive line wasn't that bad last year. Like of things that you like need to address right now.
They went hard on defensive line last year. They took McNeil, a rookie, and they took Onwuzurike from Washington. They doubled up early in the draft on interior defensive linemen. So after they went Sewell, they really beefed up the interior. So that's kind of where Walker fits in as well. So maybe they wouldn't go with that because they feel like they want to let these kind of guys maybe develop a little bit. They are getting Aquara back next year, and Charles Harris was fine for them this year. So maybe they don't go Trayvon Walker.
My brain is thinking like their corners have struggled a little bit. But maybe if you're like, okay, we don't want to replace these guys because we still have faith in them. Let's give them a safety net, give them a little bit of help over top. And who better to give them help than like the number 1 safety prospect, even though he ran a 4.7.
I think I agree with you, Bladen, but I just do not think that NFL teams feel the same way. And I feel like Hamilton is probably going to fall a little bit farther than people think. It just seems to be the vibe. It seems to be the way things are trending.
I'll give you, Detroit desperately needs another safety. It's probably their biggest need is they have one safety.
Like
and
Will Harris is not good.
Will Harris is no good. However, it is just, you've got maybe Kine falls to them at 32, maybe Brisker there. Around there could make sense. There's Nick Cross later in the draft. There's a lot of safeties. Kirby Joseph out of Illinois. So it's just taking a safety, and I'm not saying it's the end of days, but like he ran like a 4.7, dude. It's really tough. The number 2 overall, and it's bad positional value anyway. And again, I'm not the biggest guy on that, even though I brought it up 2 picks in a row.
Safety's good. Safety's great positional value.
Sort of. It's NFL teams are coming around to it, but at 2, it's never happened before. I don't think a safety's ever gone number 1 or number 2 overall. Certainly not number 1. So it would be unlikely. The other name I will throw out there is Malik Willis, who needs a year in the worst way. I think he would get a year in the worst. He would get a year behind Goff, potentially. Like they would not need him to start right away. You could get a year with Goff. I think that Dan Campbell has a lot of credit in that ownership. I think everybody likes him. I don't think even with another bad year this year, I think that his job would still be safe. I don't think that he is desperate to make like a win now type of move. And I guess taking a quarterback could be that. But I also think with Willis, it's not. He coached him at the Senior Bowl. He seems to be, they're getting hard knock. I don't know. I think things that could happen. I think that really could happen. I don't know if that matters at all, but like it could be kind of an exciting time in Detroit right now. I don't know if that makes sense.
It would be a splash.
They coached him at the Senior Bowl. I don't know. I think I could see that as well. If we don't think they want Trayvon Walker, if we think Thibodeau is the other guy that we could maybe say, but
I still think they're going Thibodeau.
Okay.
Trey Flowers. It's tough to judge exactly what they're looking for with their edge rushers because they did not really bring in any of their edge rushers. They didn't bring in Trey Flowers. Patricia did, right? And Trey Flowers isn't on the team anymore.
Right.
And he didn't really fit, I felt like, what they wanted to do as much. They've got those big guys up front, and I think they want again, Trayvon Walker runs like a 4.5 at 270. So I'm not sure I can hate on it regardless. And maybe that is what they want, but I don't think the scheme fit for Thibodeau would be any worse. It just comes down to whichever guy is probably, or both are so close enough within their scheme that I think whichever guy just fits more works for them. Whichever guy is higher on their board works for them. I mean,
I truly think Thibodeau is going to fall. I really do think he will. I think that scouts, or I don't know what it is with him, but it's the same thing I saw with Fields last year, where it was just people are overthinking him. And again, I've talked about this before. Maybe they didn't overthink Fields. Maybe Fields is legit just bad because he didn't have a first rookie year, but a good rookie year. But it just seems like the NFL doesn't covet him the way the media does. And they don't think that he is, like, if you look at NFL, like Lance Zierlein's NFL scouting reports, there's always the quotes from the scouts, and the scouts are like, with Thibodeau, they're like, oh, he's so overrated. And even on Hutchinson's little blurb, they're like, oh, he's so much better than Thibodeau. He just seems to be not in the eyes of NFL teams like Trayvon Walker. And I feel like people who are more plugged, I hate to just default to people who are more plugged into us are saying, but I don't know. I kind of feel like Walker makes sense. I don't know if I would. Right. It's not what I would do.
Okay, no. I'll give you Walker, although I will bring up that I think if I were the Lions and the team was really looking for Malik Willis, I'd be in some
that is okay. That's the other option. Could we just predict that the Lions trade out of the pick?
Nah, we got no trades though, because then it gets so confusing. I feel
fair enough.
Although hypothetically, like maybe the Steelers or somebody.
So Walker is.
Walker. We'll go Walker.
Walker.
He's been getting a lot of hype.
He's legit good. Like, he is legit good. And I think like the Lions their run defense has been so bad recently. I know 2 years ago when Patricia was there, they allowed more yards after contact in the run game than the Buccaneers did total. And it got better last year, but they still can't tackle. So Walker can tackle. The dude is a really good run defender. So right away, there's like instant impact there, and you think you can maybe mesh him into higher. He seems to be getting a lot of hype right now. So Walker at number 2, then it's number 3.
That makes sense. It wouldn't be a bad pick at all.
It wouldn't be I think it would kind of be a bad pick, but
the correct pick is Kyle Hamilton. Let's be real here, but
we'll see. Number 3 is the Houston Texans with their first of 2 first-round picks now. They could probably use just about every position on the board. And they're here. What do we think?
Like you said, they need pretty much everything. Except they probably won't take quarterback. I think they do like Davis Mills, and he had a pretty good rookie year, so I can't blame them. But like, you look at every other position, man, except for, I guess maybe they're decent at receiver. It's like Brandon Cooks and Nico Collins. But man, everywhere else, it's just it's shaky to look at. It's like they could take a corner here.
You got all the tackles there. You could just take Evan Neal, and
you could, except you have Laramie Tunsil from the Dolphins trade all those years ago.
The thing is, Neal can
really good tackles.
Neal can play right tackle. He played it in 2020. He was the right tackle for the Crimson Tide, and I believe Leatherwood was on the other side of him. So he can play right tackle opposite of Tunsil, and then you've got Tunsil and Evan Neal, and that is not a bad tackle group to have.
It's not a bad thing to do at all.
It's not a bad thing to do at all. It reminds me a little bit of Sewell to the Lions, who we didn't quite see coming last year, and there was like, oh well, they have a left tackle in Decker, so are they going to take a left tackle in Sewell? I think if Evan Neal fell this far, I really do think teams covet the tackles. Like,
absolutely they do. All 3 of these guys are really, really strong. I think Neal here would be a really good pick.
Yes, probably would. So I think it's Neal. I do, if it were to land and shake out like this. Their other tackle is Charlie Heck on the depth chart, which I can't lie, I don't know that much about him. Titus Howard has played there before and played all right there, but he, at least on the ESPN depth chart, is listed at left guard. I would rather have Evan Neal than Charlie Heck at any rate. So that's who I would say goes here.
That is the correct decision, to choose Evan Neal over Charlie Heck. So Evan Neal with pick number 3. We in consensus there?
Yes.
All right.
I would say so. The Jets,
Neal.
The Jets are at number 4, and Jets fans are not happy with whoever I mock because they don't think they need any offensive linemen, and they don't think they need any corners either. And
what? What Jets team have they been watching?
To be fair, I mean, their offensive line, they did bring in Laken Tomlinson this year, and George Fant wasn't that bad, and they'll be getting...
Listen, I don't... Here's my thing with the Jets. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, they did this where they revamped their entire offensive line, and not a single one of them worked out. Until I actually see like the offensive line perform, I'm not trusting anything they do. And I guess that was an old regime, so... But still, I don't know.
Dude,
let me just not go in on the Jets.
This is the toughest draft
quick
to predict I can remember ever, dude.
Yeah.
They could do pretty much anything. There's about 10, 15, but like maybe not 15.
They could take a receiver. They could take Stingley.
Garrett Wilson, baby.
Garrett Wilson. That'd be a great pick. Drake London. That'd be a great pick. You know, one thing that Zach Wilson really benefited from in college? Having receivers that would just go get him shit. You know who could go get you shit? Garrett Wilson or Drake London.
They're not going for... Here's what I think. I think Ike Ekwonu is the pick here, and I think that it has to do with them wanting to be the 49ers. It's much like the Dolphins. They want their Teron Armstead. They want someone who can move. They want someone who's good in space. They want their Teron Armstead. They want their Trent Williams. If you watch what Ike Ekwonu does in the run game, he is that freaking guy there, dude. His pancake, like watching the Clemson game, I bet he knocked at least 10 people on their ass. Like he is going to be like, okay, if we want to be, they were in on Tyreek Hill, just like the Dolphins were. All right. They are very much in that vein of like them, the 49ers and the Dolphins are all kind of on the same wavelength, I think. And the Dolphins went and got the 49ers went and got Trent Williams. They went and got Teron Armstead. I think Ekwonu is the fit here. I really do. I think like they'll find a spot for him.
And they do have 2 first-round picks, so I wouldn't be surprised to see them go receiver with the 10th.
If they think he's better, it wouldn't surprise me if they thought he was better as a scheme fit than even than George Fant or even their other left tackle who was hurt last year, whose name is, God, I'm so bad with names. We're a sports podcast. You can never remember anybody's name.
When you have a lot of names to remember, it's difficult.
Mekhi Becton. It wouldn't even surprise me if they thought he was better than Mekhi Becton. So it would shock me if they moved on from Becton. But man, I really think what they want to do on offense just fits like a glove into the game of Ike Ekwonu.
Yeah, I'm down for that. I think that makes sense.
All right.
The only other problem...
Thibodeau is who they want. That's who the Jets fans want is Thibodeau here.
I feel like the only other problem is they do still have Vera Tucker. And is he going to be playing guard?
He's guard.
Or tackle? Okay.
He's guard. You can put him in a right guard. Like, again, George Fant was decent last year.
Because I remember the appeal to Tucker last year was that he was that versatile guy. You could move him wherever.
Yeah, you want all your linemen to be versatile. Everyone wants a versatile lineman that can step in at any role, and I really think Ekwonu is pretty good at that, and I think Vera Tucker is good at that too. I don't think NFL teams have it in their mind. It's like, oh, we don't need to upgrade the offensive line very much. I don't know. I think Ekwonu is the fit here with the Jets.
I think you're always thinking, how can we get better?
To
some extent. But it's just like, I don't know. I feel like you have other needs. I guess. Maybe you like Corey Davis. Maybe you still, you like Elijah Moore, obviously. Braxton Berrios had a pretty decent year last year.
The wide receiver, and you've got number 10. I think that if you're going to address wide receiver, and I think we might need those number wide receiver at number 10. 4 would be really high for any
Garrett
wide
Wilson, which they should.
The receivers are more likely to fall to you at 10 than the tackles are. So
absolutely. You're not getting Ekwonu at 10. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Because the Giants would take him at number 5, I think, if he was gone.
You're right.
For the sake of speed, maybe a little bit. Let's look at the next 3 picks in a group here. Because we have Giants, Panthers, Giants. 5, 6, 7. Okay. Now I have a good feeling about what we're going to say the Panthers are doing.
For those who don't know, Fitter was asked, what is your strategy at number 6? And he said, the tackles are the top guys on our board. He said, we want to tackle. But he said, you also kind of have to reach for a quarterback, is basically what he said. He's like, you can't go into the year with no quarterback, so we might have to reach for one, is basically what he said. So I think the Giants go cross at number 5 because you got Daboll, who likes to air it out. He's a very pass heavy, like the Bills are very pass heavy, one of the more pass heavy. Cross, what is he? A pass blocker. Like he played under Leach, who passes it almost exclusively. So I think that's a good marriage. I think the Giants go Cross at 5. I think the Panthers with Neal, Ekwonu, Cross going 1, 2, 3. They do what they said they were going to do. They reach on Pickett because Rule recruited Pickett and probably trusts Pickett. And I don't even think people are that like anti-Pickett anyway in the NFL. I think people like him. So Cross, Pickett, and then the next Giants pick.
Yeah.
Is that what you were thinking, Matt? I'm sorry. I kind of just...
I figured we would have the Giants taking tackle with pick 5.
I think that the NFL is maybe not as high on Charles Cross as they should be.
That might be true also.
I wonder if the Giants are looking here and they're saying like, because Daniel Jeremiah, he is pretty plugged in. And I know he's not just like giving opinions that are like, here's what everyone else thinks. And I'm just going to like, I really like Daniel Jeremiah, and he is super low on Cross. He's like, he doesn't dislike him, but he's like, he has him like 20 or something like really low. And a lot, there seems to be two groups of thinking where it's like tier 1 is Cross, Icky, and Neal, or tier 1 is just Icky and Neal. And if the Giants fall into that second category, it's like, are they going to reach on Linderbaum at 5? Probably not. Right. So I wonder if they go Tibbs and Stingley and say, we just got 2 really good defensive players.
I think that's not crazy. And I think the last mock draft I did or 2 ago, that's what I mocked him was Stingley and Tibbs, who might be my 2 favorite defensive players in the entire draft. But those, again, we talk about what we think NFL teams are low on and who they're high on. I think like Cross, the NFL teams may be low on, but I think like if you're the Giants, you're looking at your offensive line and you're looking at it as being terrible, because it is. You've got one good one, and it's Andrew Thomas. I think that if any team covets Cross, it would be the Giants and Daboll, because he is kind of pass heavy. And, you know, like a team like the Ravens probably isn't taking Cross just because they run it so much, and he just didn't do that much in college. So I kind of think that they go Cross. And also if they're looking at number 6, and who the Panthers are going to take, they're like, well, they could take Cross because they need an offensive lineman as well. So they would probably take Cross before the Panthers pick, in my opinion. I think again, offensive line is safe. Cross is a great pass protector. I know Daniel Jeremiah is low on him, but I think Daboll and the Giants might like him.
Here's my question. Well, I guess, yeah, with Daboll, they're probably going to be pass heavy. I was thinking, what would make you think that the Giants wouldn't be run heavy? They went and got Matt Breida. Tyrod Taylor's now the backup. So like they feel like a team that would want to run the ball. They have all the pieces to do it with Kadarius Toney, Saquon Barkley, Matt Breida, Daniel Jones. It seems like the pieces are there to be a run heavy team. I just think this offense will look a little bit like the Bills last year, and I just don't think of Daboll as like this ground and pound type of guy. I just don't. And I think like he might do some like a lot of read option and run it with Daniel Jones and stuff like that. That might be heavy, but they're not like this power run. And it's not like Cross will just not be able to block the run. We just haven't seen him do it. Like maybe he's really good at it. We just haven't seen him do it all that much. So I think Cross at number 5. I think all the tackles are going to go pretty high. I mean, when you look at what the Panthers said,
I can get behind that.
They said
I'm going Tibbs at 7. I'm putting my foot down.
I am too. All right. I am too.
I'm putting my foot down.
I'm kidding. But at some point, a team will take him. I did a Lions mock draft on Pro Football Focus's thing the other day, and I traded down with the Lions, and I got Tibbs and Garrett Wilson because I traded back up.
So we're going Cross, Pickett, Tibbs.
Cross, Pickett, Tibbs, 5, 6, 7. And then we got the Falcons at number 8. The Falcons, who
is a receiver pick. You can't convince me it's not.
It very much could be a receiver pick, Bladen.
What?
Yeah.
What else? Like, I get it's like, okay, they don't have Matt Ryan anymore. They might want to get a quarterback, but they're probably not getting a quarterback to start right away because they brought in Mariota. So if they're getting a guy, it's going to be a bridge guy. And if they're going to get a bridge guy, you don't need to take him in the first round. You know what you desperately fucking need? Some wide receivers. The one receiver The one receiver you had is like not allowed to play football right now because he bet like $2,500 or something.
So if they thought there was a franchise guy in the draft, you think they wouldn't take him because they have Mariota?
That is a good way to look at it. I don't know.
I don't think Mariota is like.
Do you think the Falcons think there's a franchise guy there?
I do.
I think,
but it's Desmond Ridder. I think if they're taking a quarterback, I'll say this: if they're taking a quarterback, my guess they trade back over to the first and get Ridder. But at 8, I'm inclined to agree. I think they do go Garrett Wilson.
they might. I would agree. It's tough for me to look at that wide receiving core and come up with any other conclusion. It's like you just can't go into the season like that.
Yeah.
The thing about the Falcons is there's a couple different positional groups that they've got where I'm like, you can't go into the season like that.
But receiver, you really can't go into.
There's three position groups where you're like, they'll have to use the 8th pick on this.
Yeah, like
and
Garrett Wilson is one. He's all of our wide receiver one. He's most commonly the first wide receiver off the board. You could say, okay, Arthur Smith came from Tennessee. You look at like what he wants to do, and maybe AJ Brown, Traylon Burks. There's a little bit of a comparison there.
Yeah,
I could see that being a thing. Instead of Garrett Wilson, I could see maybe him coveting that skill set a little bit more, but I'm not sure after the combine, although AJ Brown had a very similar combine. But then again, AJ Brown went the second round. Stingley and Sauce, opposite of Terrell, has also got to be pretty tempting, and they don't have a lot of talent on that defense, and they haven't had a good pass rusher since John Abraham, which is the second podcast in a row I've said his name. But
I think if you're looking at, you're like, okay, we have AJ Terrell. We don't need a corner, right? It would be nice to have a second guy across from him.
I think
we need a receiver.
If there's any team that is like, dude, we might not make the playoffs this year, going into it, it'll be the Falcons. And I think picking this high again, your strategy can't be like, what's our biggest need? They're going to be bad no matter what.
Right.
Probably.
Right. It's probably best player available for them at this point, which I believe would be Derek Stingley. But they really do need a wide. But like Garrett Wilson also might be.
I was about to say Garrett Wilson might be best player available, but it depends. Like that's our best player available, right? Like, what's the Falcons' best?
If only
player
I
available?
knew what their big board was and what they were thinking,
right? Like,
then I'd be able to tell you for a fact. I think they're going with an Ohio player. Now, which one? It's a tough choice.
Yes,
Sauce or Garrett.
Yeah, I would go with. I think I'd go with Garrett Wilson here, even though I just kind of second guessed it. I really do think he's got a conversation to be one of the best wide receivers in this draft. It wouldn't surprise me if teams had him as wide receiver 1 just because he's the best wide receiver. He's really good. Like he's really, really good. He
ran fast at the combine. Pick. It's not like literally everything adds up. The tape is great. His combine performance is great. What is there to like dislike? Nothing.
Right. They might think of it as like, we'll go with Garrett Wilson. Sorry, Falcons fans, if this is just totally out of character for them, but I don't really think it is. Number 9 is the Seattle Seahawks. This is where I think we're on Ridder watch. The Seahawks, there is just no way I could see them going into the year with Drew Lock as an uncontested starter. That just does not check out to me in terms of how NFL teams operate and how the Seahawks operate. Just because I moved on from Russ, I don't think Pete Carroll at age 60 something is just like, oh, well, our timeline is 3 years from now. I really don't. I think Ridder is a guy they would like. I think that he is smart enough that he can operate this offense like at a high level. I think he's really going to impress teams like with his interviews and with his mentality. He's got a kid. Having a kid is a big deal, I think, in the draft. I really think like having a family, I would trust a guy with like,
I watch these quarterbacks make throws. I'm like, there's no way he's hitting that.
He's no way he doesn't have a kid. No, but I legitimately think like that will shit. Like you're less likely to be a bust if you have like a family that you have to you have to be good for. I think it's a motivation that you can't go home and tell your wife and kids that you got cut. I legitimately think that matters for NFL teams. Like if a prospect has a kid, they will be like, this is a responsible person who we can rely on. I legitimately do think that they will like that about Ritter. I think they will like Ritter is a little bit Russ-like in mentality, and maybe things just ended poorly in Russ. So maybe they're not looking for that, but maybe they are. Maybe that is something they covet in quarterback. I think he's smart. I really think NFL teams are going to be a little bit higher. He tested well, right? He's a good athlete. He's got I really think he could go here to Seattle. I think he fits what they want to do. I think he would mesh with what the type of guy that they want. I think that Ritter makes sense. I really do. I do think that Ritter makes sense here.
What are the Seahawks' other needs?
Edge
Probably
rusher
offensive
for sure.
Offensive line.
Edge rusher, interior, like everywhere on the offensive line. Definitely edge rusher. Definitely corner.
Are you taking Linderbaum here? Probably not.
Probably not. He's a little light. He's really fallen as the draft has gone on. I think people are a little bit scared about Garrett Bradbury's failures, and they think like, oh, I hope. I don't know if I want to bet on another undersized center like that. So I don't know. It could be, but the other thing is it could be Sauce Gardner, who is just like the quintessential Seahawks.
I'm not going to argue with either of those picks, dude. Here's what I think we go Ritter here, and then we can swing around and get Sauce at 10 and have two Bearcats in the top 10.
For the Jets to get Sauce at 10.
That's not that unrealistic. No, I think
Sauce is probably
the Seahawks. Here's the thing: the Seahawks are
yeah.
another team. I think they go Sauce here.
Yeah,
who
the
Seahawks are another corners team right now. It's Artie Burns, right? Didn't they get Artie Burns?
Well, yeah, but if he sees the field, something has gone catastrophically wrong because Artie Burns is absolutely objectively horrible. They drafted a good corner last year who is underrated, and his name is, I believe, Trent. Sidney Jones is yeah, but I think that they're going to be high on Trey Brown. Trey Brown is going to start instead of Artie Burns. Trey Brown is actually half decent. Sidney Jones is half decent. Jamal Adams is half decent, and Quandre Diggs is really good. So yeah, if you add one more good corner to that secondary,
it's like
that it's all right.
You think they're trying to rebuild the Legion of Boom? That's like the question that.
I do think they are a little bit. Yeah, I mean, they still play a similar fashion where it's Quandre Diggs up top and Jamal Adams very much in the box. And it's not exactly the same thing as it was years ago, but it's comparable. I think it's comparable.
I think that this is another scenario. I just don't think that teams are top 10 high on Ritter.
Yeah.
And this is another team where I'm like, do they have the 40 and the 41?
I could see Desmond going as low as like the second round.
I think they'd move into the first to get him.
I think they would go. I think he might be. Bridgewater is a quarterback who you could maybe hypothetically compare Ritter to on the low end. The Vikings traded back into the first round with the last pick in the draft, first round to get. I think that is what you would see if Ritter starts to fall. Is like someone would trade back in the very. But yeah, I think we're on Ritter watch.
Bridgewater was nice in college too.
He was. Bridgewater was also like supposed to be like the number one overall pick until he had a bad pro day, which is one of the only bad pro days affecting stock that I've ever seen. But I do think we're at Ritter watch at 9 to Seattle. I think it wouldn't shock me, but I do think someone like Sauce
makes
Gardner
a lot of sense.
Would probably be higher on their board.
Oh, they have Jamal Adams and Quandre Diggs at safety, right?
So we're going Sauce
no
at
Hamilton. 9. Yeah, so Sauce probably is the pick at 9.
And then here at 10, we'll go. You guys want to go? I mean, we're 50 minutes into the podcast.
Jesus Christ!
You guys want to go?
Imagine if we did a full mock draft, bro. This would be like a 3 hour. Yeah.
Okay, so they were in on Tyreek Hill, right? They wanted Tyreek Hill. They wanted him very badly. Or maybe not very badly because they weren't willing to part with pick number 10. But they do want to. It shows their hand that they do want to incorporate speed into their defense or their offense. I mean. I don't think Jamison Williams is all that crazy to say. If they were like in on Tyreek Hill and they were like, okay, well, we're not willing to give up number 10 for him because we think Jamison Williams can do the same thing in our offense for $25 million less a year, you know? So,
well, okay. We have to think about like Tyreek Hill is more than just speed, right? You've talked about this. You think he's the best receiver in the NFL. I don't know if you still believe that, but you've said it before that he can do it all.
So
right?
Jameson is a little bit like that too.
When Tyreek is available, and when Tyreek was available, right, you're like, damn, we can get Tyreek Hill. Like, I don't think you're like, oh, we just want a speed guy. You're like, we can get maybe the best receiver in the NFL. I think that's more where someone's head's at. And I don't think Jameson possesses nearly the same skill set that Tyreek does. I don't think Jameson can attack the catch point the way Tyreek does.
Absolutely not. But
so like I would take Drake London. I think Drake London is miles better. I think Treylon Burks is miles better than Jameson Williams.
I don't think London fits what they want to do because they want, I think, someone that's tough to tackle and dynamic and everything after the catch.
Is Drake London not tough to tackle?
He is, but he's not like this dynamic athlete. I think he would have
Drake London to me feels exactly like what Zach Wilson what Zach Wilson had at BYU. This feels like a Zach Wilson receiver to me.
Maybe. I don't think London goes. I don't know. I feel like they go Burks or Williams. I think that makes more sense. I think like they want yak. I think that they want quick hitters, and then they want to take those to the house. That's what I think.
Burks,
I like Burks.
Burks is a great pick.
I don't hate Williams either here. I think it's possible they go Williams. I really do. I think like, again, this is a report from Dane Brugler. Like he said, Jameson Williams is going to go higher than you think. A lot of NFL teams have him as their wide receiver 1. I would not take Jameson Williams here, but I think the Jets might covet him. I also think they might covet. Is Stingley really going to fall out of the top 10 as someone who might be the number 1 player in the draft? Like, might be. That's the other thing I'm thinking is like, is Stingley really going to fall to 11 or 12 when he might be the best player in the draft when he's healthy? So that's what I would say. I would say Burks, Stingley, or Jameson Williams here.
Burks and Stingley, I think both make a lot of sense. I like Burks a lot. I like Stingley a lot. And I could see the Jets obviously would need both of those positions. I'm trying to think, who do they have at corner right now?
They
don't have Poole anymore, right? Poole's long gone. It's DJ Reed and Bryce Hall.
Yeah, which is not that bad, honestly. It's not that bad. Bryce Hall had a nice year last year, and DJ Reed, honestly, had like a half-decent year last year, and I was really surprised when Seattle let him go. So I think that wide receiver here is what they – or maybe they're planning on going – I don't know. I would go with Burks or Williams. That's my take. I think that they want to kind of add a little bit of juice to those weapons and be able to surround Zach Wilson when he's on a rookie. Like, let's get Zach Wilson some help here. We got him help at number 4. Let's get him a weapon. So do you want to go Burks here?
Matt, how you feeling about Burks?
It's fine by me.
Okay, Burks it is.
All right, so the top 10 in the draft, we have debated and deliberated a lot of different options, but it goes Jaguars, Hutchinson, Detroit, Trayvon Walker, Texans, Evan Neal, Jets, Ike Ekwonu, Giants, Charles Cross, Panthers, Kenny Pickett, Giants, Kayvon Thibodeau, Falcons, Garrett Wilson, Seattle, Sauce Gardner, and Jets, Treylon Burks, which I think is pretty solid.
I do think it's pretty solid.
Yes.
No Stingley, no Hamilton top 10.
No Stingley, no Hamilton top 10. And that would be surprising, but I really think that that's possible.
I don't think you have to keep in mind that like there will be no order of top 10 picks where there isn't someone where you're like, this guy isn't top 10. That's the way it has to go.
And someone's always going to go higher than you think. It happens every year. So, I could see Burks being one of those guys that goes a little bit higher than people think. Like the way AJ Brown's turned out, maybe people are like, okay, let's not sleep on a guy like that again.
Right.
So, and if Pickett goes top 10, then there's like, that's 2 spots where, guys are like missing on the top 10.
No Willis top 10 either. And I think that a team would be willing to move up for him in that case. So yeah, there's definitely some guys who are here that, or who are not here that might probably, or may even probably be here, but I don't know. I think that these are all pretty good fits if you look at the logic of all of them. I don't think like if the draft did work out this way that people would be like, whoa, that was the craziest first round that's the craziest top 10 I've ever seen, even though there's some really good players falling. And I would say we would expect Willis, Hamilton, and Stingley to be maybe the next 3 guys off the board. And that's maybe when we start to see some trade ups for teams that do covet them. Yeah.
All right. That's a top 10. what else is top 10 all time?
Underdog Fantasy?
Oh my gosh, Theo, you got it. It is Underdog Fantasy, the fastest growing fantasy app ever. And you can draft a fantasy team in just minutes. March Madness is here. We're going to touch on that in just a little bit. And this is the quickest way to get in on the action is with Underdog's Pick'em game. You can pick over or under on 2 to 5 different players' stats, and you can win up to 20 times your money in a single night. If your bracket's already busted like mine is, this is a great way to get back into the tournament. You can use the code STAYHOT at underdogfantasy.com or using their mobile app, and you'll get your first deposit doubled. Again, underdogfantasy.com or the Underdog Fantasy mobile app. Use the code STAYHOT to get your first deposit doubled. We were going to talk about some NBA, but we are running really long on this episode. We apologize. We will hit on it next episode. We promise it'll be our 100th episode. So just for you guys, we will talk about the NBA more. I do think we need to preview the Final Four, though.
How about this? We make our picks. Who do you think is going to win both games?
I promised someone that I would root for Duke. So Duke wins it all.
Okay. Duke versus who?
We'll say Duke versus Villanova.
Okay. Matt? Any take?
I'm picking Duke to win it all because got to jinx them, and I'm playing Kansas.
I am also going with, let's see, Duke versus UNC. Man, all 3 people picking Duke after what UNC just did to them in the
let's not get it twisted
game.
here, man. Go Tar Heels, but
I'm going to pick the Tar Heels. I'm going to pick the Duke Blue Devils also. I'm going to go 3. We'll see if we'll jinx them here.
Perfectly. Exactly.
Hey, I have a pretty good track record when it comes to jinxing teams.
You do.
When I jinxed Miami and St. Peter's in 2.
I think it'll be Duke versus Kansas. I'm with you, Matt. I think that those are the 2 best teams left. And then I think Kansas wins the whole thing. I do think that Duke loses to Kansas at the very end. And Coach K's final run comes just short. But yeah. Also, one more thing. We have a podcast. Look, I just want to talk about this for one quick second. We have a podcast, and I think anyone with a podcast is obliged. What was your take? Who is in the right in the Will Smith, Chris Rock situation? We didn't talk about this.
Yeah.
Who do you think won? Not
Get
won.
My wife's name out of your fucking mouth.
What was your initial takeaway from that situation, Bladen? Because you did not react to it until 3 hours later. That's what I want to know. What were you doing?
I was asleep.
Well, I don't understand because you tweeted out the Wordle in the middle of it.
Did I?
You did. You did tweet out the Wordle. Everyone else was talking Will Smith.
I don't remember tweeting out the Wordle.
I remember it vividly. Everyone else was talking about it, and here comes Bladen.
Did I sleep through the Wordle?
All I know is I was like, how is Bladen not talking about this?
All I remember is I fell asleep at early in the night, and I woke up at one point, and I checked my Twitter, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on with the Oscars? Because I don't really pay attention to like the Oscars or the Grammys or everything. I'll check it later on like social media, and I just see that like everyone's talking about Will Smith, and then I find this video of Will Smith punching or slapping
3 days
Chris
ago.
Rock.
3 days ago, 9:53 p.m. You tweeted Wordle 282, 5 out of 6.
Oh, I thought you meant I tweeted the next day. I didn't tweet about the Oscars until
No, this was during the whole fallout. There's literally a reply that says Twitter in shambles right now and Bladen just doing his Wordle. Gotta respect. You went on to Twitter, you posted your Wordle, and then you left.
No. What you realize, you don't have to go on to Twitter to post the Wordle.
Then 2 hours later, you said, what happened at the Oscars? So I just wanted to know what you were doing that you didn't see that happened. You were asleep.
I did the Wordle, man. I was asleep. I don't remember posting the Wordle.
Okay, I don't understand, but I guess. Man. As a podcast,
this dude has the receipts, and it's like trying to figure out what's going through my head.
I was so curious that I was like, how is this guy on Twitter and not reacting to this? He's just posting the Wordle and has just nothing to say about it.
I really don't really have anything to say about it. Honestly, if I was Will, like, here's like the only thing that gets me, like, if I was Will Smith and someone was talking shit about my wife, yeah, I probably would have done the same thing. But why are you not slapping the shit out of August? That's what I want to know. Like, you'll slap the guy making a joke about your wife at the Oscars, but not the guy sleeping with your wife.
Well, they're in an open relationship, so if it's that is, I guess, something agreed upon. I don't know. I thought it was funny. That was my take, was that it is funny. After thinking about it more as time has gone on, we're probably the last podcast to make a take on this. As time has gone on, at the first I thought I kind of understood it, but like as time has gone on, I've been like, man, I don't know why he did that. That kind of didn't make much sense. Like now that like some time has passed and I'm thinking about it a little bit more, I'm like, that
I don't know.
I really have no idea what possessed him to do that.
Okay, I'm gonna keep it real. I didn't hear the joke. What was the joke?
It's a G.I. Jane joke. He said, "He was
calling her bald." Essentially,
he's basically calling me.
She is
He's like,
alopecia. So it's
Okay.
I don't know. Like I swear to God, I'm not like copping out of this one. I just don't have a take. I just don't have an. Who was in the right? I don't know.
Maybe I wouldn't have done the same thing.
You wouldn't have done the same. No one in their right mind would have.
Here's the way that I'll look
let's
at
be
it.
honest. I don't care that he did it. I think it's funny. I think like the think pieces of like he should be in like I can't like Chris Rock should file. Obviously, Chris Rock is not going to get him arrested for that. But like you really went up and did that. Okay, I cannot say I would have done it if that joke went by and he didn't do anything about it. People would not have been like, no one would have been like, wow, I can't believe Will Smith let that slide.
Yeah.
Like, no one would have been like that. Anyway, I just wanted to ask you.
Fair enough. I guess I was kind of just like totally like.
I just thought it was funny that you post. I thought that it was funny that you, when everybody else was just melting down on Twitter, that you posted the Wordle and said nothing about it until 2 hours later.
How many likes did that Wordle post get?
Probably not that many. 34.
Damn.
Yeah, I got 34.
Not worth it, I guess.
Anyway, I just thought it was funny. Anyway, that's all we got. But
all right, well, that pretty much wraps things up for us. As always, tons of content coming away on all platforms. We will be back Monday. We're going to talk some NBA. We'll recap the Final Four results. Don't miss out on all the great content coming away on all platforms. As always, from Corn Boy, Bird Boy, and Lemon Boy, we will catch you all on the flippity flop. And a very happy April Fools.